Hey, Eric Sider here, and today we're setting up the hot compost pile. It's a 18-day Berkeley method. So our food scraps we've been putting in here and covering with some form of carbon each time. Very similar to how compost toilet works. So this is full. Time to transfer it. So I got all this carbon material gathered from around the yard. So that's gonna make up the rest of this. We just cut down a super sour and spiky pomelo tree that nobody wanted. Spike's about that big, so to deal with that in such a small space, it's got to be amazing fruit. And it was horrible fruit, so that cut down. So that back corner is where we're gonna put our pile. It's more or less the furthest away from the house and the neighbors, so when we do turn it, it will be a bit smelly, so it won't be too offensive to anybody. Let's see, we got all these damn rocks we got to clear out of the way first, and I got a few spots I can put them, but for the most part they're just going to be in piles until I can figure out what to do with them. So that's it. It's hot, time to get our sweat on. Okay, so we got the area more or less cleared out for now, and I got this cage here. It just makes it so much easier to make sure you got the right volume. So you need a minimum of a cubic meter of material, a little over a cubic yard, and this is 3 feet high by 4 feet across, so it's right around 1.5 cubic yards, just under, more or less. So now we got this, which is pretty much an even ratio of food scraps to carbon. But it's probably going to be a bit stinky when we dump it, and we're going to need more volume. So we got some carbon there. Probably going to need a bit more to fill up this cage. So, and then this is not the best best gauge wire to use. It's a bit thin, but it's what we had on site, so we're going to use it for now. And then I just have these metal bars that are woven through, so when you need to turn it, you pull those out, take the cage apart. So we're going to do that now, and we're going to dump this and see how we go. Fucking Christ, it's hot. All right, so I just steal some straw from the garden pathways just so I can cover this up for now, because obviously I need a lot more material to fill up this cage. But this is the first time I'm doing this, so I really didn't know how much of the cage it was going to fill up. So it's still got about a foot at least to go up in height, so I'm gonna have to get some more straw, one thing, so I can return it to the garden path, but then probably gonna have to start harvesting some other green materials and see if we can finish this off. All right, till later. Okay, so we finally got our compost cage filled up. I'd say it basically took about 2 months of food scraps from the house, shredded paper, straw, few weeds from around the property. I mean, I could have went out and collected more to fill up faster, but it's kind of interesting to see how long it would take to get a full-size compost pile with primarily just food scraps from the house. So let's put that at 2 months, and let's say conservatively, if it takes another month to get finished compost, that gives you a cubic meter of compost every 3 months, which more or less coincides with the growing season. So that's pretty good without really any outside effort at all. So you could obviously increase that to once a month if you're gonna start doing a plant nursery or something that's gonna be removing the fertility from the yard. Then you need a way to get it back faster. So I'm gonna wet this down real nice because it's more or less just been sitting here in stasis, and then I'm going to take the cage off, cover it with the tarp so the stays moist, and then we're going to wait 4 days, and it's going to be ready for its first turn. Now, I don't really know how the proportions of everything are going to work out, so it's going to be a bit of an experiment. Usually what you want is a third carbon or mulch, a third animal manure like horse, cow, chicken, sheep, and then a third food scraps and green material. So this is basically 2/3 kitchen scraps and 1/3 shredded paper and straw. We'll see how it works out. Now in this dry of a climate, it's going to be really difficult to over-wet this pile at the beginning, so I'd rather have it slightly over-wet than over-dry at this point. I think we've got our first water pooling, so I think that'll be enough. All right, it does get pretty windy here, being flat and all, so I'll probably get some weights to just anchor that down, but it's going to sit for 4 days, and then we get our first turn and get to see what the heck's happening in there. It's going to be interesting because it's been sitting for so long. It'll be interesting to see how much of the nitrogen is still ready to keep cooking. All right. Okay, it's finally time to turn the compost. We're actually on day 6, so I'm 2 days late, but I'm pretty relaxed about this compost process because there's really no urgency to get it done because I'm not really planting anything right now. It's just too damn hot. But it is going to be an interesting experiment to see how I need to adjust it for primarily using only food scraps as the nitrogen component. So we're going from here to here. It's a little tight, but we'll make it work. We got these nasty, thorny, unproductive citrus tree right here. I took one out that used to be here, and that one will probably be coming out later as well. So I'm gonna just wet down the area where the pile's going so the ground doesn't suck all the moisture. Take our cover off and see what's cracking underneath. Still nice and wet, that's good. And this is hot. Whew. That might just be from the sun, but I don't know. Right. Yeah. So I don't have a proper manure fork. I just have this garden fork, which this is not for turning compost. This is for loosening the soil, hence the short handle. Manure fork would be much longer handle and wider tongs, ideally 5, but you can get away with 4. So this might be a bit of a pain, but we'll get through it. Can't seem to find a manure fork in the stores around here, so I might just have to break down and order one. All right, so a little bit of compost turning philosophy. The best description I've heard about how to turn a compost was from Jeff Lawton, and he basically described it as an onion. So think of it as an onion in multiple layers. You're peeling off the outside layer, that becomes the center, and you keep going until the current center becomes the outside. So I'm going to go a little extra heavy on the top layer just because it's still got some pretty ripe food scraps that we're definitely going to want to be covered in the center of the pile. I got some more food scraps there, our nitrogen, and I got some straw in case we need to alter the carbon to nitrogen ratio. And I can already see some moldy bits here, which means it's either too wet or too hot. And considering I'm 2 days past the day it should have been turned, hopefully just the air introduced from turning it will be enough to do the job. Still feeling some heat. Let's see if we can exhaust that a bit. Okay, yeah, it's definitely steaming. Ooh, it's definitely strong smelling and hot, so now the outside is definitely a lot drier, so I'm gonna make sure I incorporate that in with the moist, stinky center. I mean, this mostly works fine. It's really the ergonomics with the longer handle, the short handle, you tend to be bending over a lot more, so it's a bit of a not so much fun for your back. Yeah, here's another thing. I kind of assumed this. So in future, when using shredded paper or office paper, you definitely want it to shred up into smaller particles. Otherwise, you get this kind of layering effect that it's really hard to break this down. So that's something I should have been more conscious about. Shredding this up more before adding it. But we'll see if the compost magic will take care of it or not. Actually, I forgot my rake. Just a quick observation about the area around your compost pile that you need. It's kind of like the area you'd need for a pool table. You want to make sure you got the pool table, but you also need all the range of the pool cue. So that's not too dissimilar. Is probably you want something like this all the way around your compost pile, but also around where you're going to turn it. So you can see I'm a little short on space, and I know I'm going to get all these damn rocks into my compost, so probably going to need to expand this out a bit for the next one. I understand why people put down rocks, and it's better than wasting resources on grass. But for my purposes right now, man, it's a pain in the ass every time I want to do something. I gotta move all these rocks around. Okay, so as I suspected, the office paper that wasn't shredded and just formed like a mat on top of itself, and since the center is completely dried out, um, a lot of the reason probably the extra 2 days it was sitting here, that was a real pain in the butt to turn. So definitely, if I'm going to keep using office paper, it's got to be shredded. And even when it's shredded, it can still form a mat on itself. So having it churned up with a little bit of soil or something like that probably help keep it separated. So it's going to take another couple flips before I can really determine if how the ratio is working out. All right, so thanks so much for watching. Tune in next time for the second flip. All right, cheers.